For there shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us. May that Brahman sustain us. May that Brahman illumine our thinking process. Free us from impediments and obstacles, and reveal to us the essence of the scriptures. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Jayanti Mangalakali, Bhadrakali Kapalini, Durga Kshama Shividatri, Swaha Swadha Namostute. Jaya Narayani Namostute. Jaya Narayani Namostute. Jaya Narayani Namostute. And here on the cusp of our Kali Puja Day, which is tomorrow, we are at the SRV ashram here, about to do a meditation upon the Divine Mother in her ferocious form, although she can also take on the form of Bhadrakali, very gentle and nourishing. We'll look at all of that next weekend at our seminar. So if you're planning to come to the Sunday class next week, make sure that you know that's replaced both on Saturday and Sunday and Monday with seminar classes on the Divine Mother of the Universe. The negativity destroying child of Mother Durga is what we're calling that. And we'll look at that. I'll have a new cover chart for it as usual. And we'll look at that deeply. And so we're just entering into that atmosphere now. And it's a good time then to air the fourth class of this teaching on Shakti with her Shiva, and how we're calling that Samara Samasa. So we want to have this Samara Sattva kind of attitude about bringing together the aspects of transcendental reality and dynamic power. To understand that simply is to think of what Sri Ramakrishna said about fire in its heat, or water in its wetness, snow in its whiteness, or a snake in its wriggling motion. It takes it more into the area of immobility and mobility, or stability and dynamic movement. Dynamic movement can tend to mesmerize people. Then we call that Maya. But when that dynamic movement is seen to be occurring on the foundation of Brahman, then the seers call that Shakti. And if you're able to understand the meanings behind dynamic movement based upon the foundation of Brahman, then you'll be experiencing Leela, or divine play, when you're alive in the body on this earth even, rather than having that painful Maya that comes from circulating on the wheel of samsara that we hear about so much, with its suffering and ignorance and fear and doubt. So a fourth class on that is what we're going to conclude the series with. And you could see that I've got at least one or two of the charts with me that we've already looked at, because we just want to point out a few of the grounds that we've covered. And if we go here to the Real Bliss of Brahman chart first, to get us started right away and make most use of our time, we saw this whole host of things on the chart, which were defined below for us. If we're not Sanskritists, or don't have a ready access to the Sanskrit language, the Deva Bhashya, the language of the gods, because spirituality was so well defined in that language in ancient times, and it's then sort of understandable why it's not used nowadays so much, because spirituality isn't of interest to most people. So, but if we look back into the way that they described unknown or unseen things like Brahman, or even like it's Maya, that appearance that comes out of it that's confusing and puts people off, or even things like the Atmagyan, which is hidden wisdom, when people are focusing more on the lower knowledge, or Shakti herself, the dynamic power, which, I mean, If you see a snake still and you see it wriggling, you say, well, look, it's wriggling now, but you don't really put attention on the fact of how it wriggles or how it moves. The power that's causing it to move is supplanted by the sensation of watching it move. So that's how people are with nature. They see the winds blow trees and the clouds roll across the skies and the snow cover the mountains and the rains fall and cause lakes and streams. And they get mesmerized by the outer shore of that and don't delve deeply into the nature of Shakti that's causing all of these things to happen. It's called dynamic power of Brahman. So Brahman is there in and in everything, but Brahman is formless. So the way that it expresses itself, and it's very well known as we look at Shiva Shakti in Tantra. And that's what we're looking at on one of these charts, which we'll glance at again here to show the divine couple. That is the couple who's trying to aspire to be the yogi and yogini that even Sri Ramakrishna mentioned in current times, that he said there are hidden householders who are yogis and yoginis amongst that fold, that following of householders. For instance, like Nag Mahashaya, we were talking about him at the God blogs on Sunday, and he has very humorous ways of describing things. People try and do their practice, but they haven't qualified themselves to understand the very things they're practicing. So he said that's sort of like rowing a boat that's anchored to the dock. So you can go down there at night and get in a boat, pick up the oars and start rowing. And when the light comes, you see you haven't gone anywhere because you forgot to take the mooring. You detach yourself from the boat, from the mooring. So that's what spiritual practice is like without the presence of consciousness of Shakti and the underlying presence of Brahman. And underlying, so Shakti can also become quite unseen and unnoticed. And that's why there are not a lot of religious traditions even that look at the divine feminine and put her in her proper place next to her great companion, Lord Shiva. So Shiva and Shakti is what we've been talking about for 3 classes here. And the methods that they give through the guru to the aspirants who are qualified. These 2 aspirants are a male and female partner, and they themselves are manifestations of Shiva and Shakti. I said earlier on, don't let that put you off from these classes if you don't have a consecrated partner at this time for whatever reason, is that you're also trying to become guru and disciple is one Shiva and Shakti. They say that Krishna is the male and all souls in the world are females. So you have that kind of look at the idea of Shiva and Shakti, even in Vaishnavism. Also, you're trying to get into contact with Ishvara when you meditate. You've been given a mantra. We'll look at that today. You'll be given a mantra. It's mantra Chaitanya, right? So it's on one of these charts. You've been given a mantra that is trying to connect you with the Divine Lord, who can be either, according to your choice, Ishvara or Ishvari, uh, the Lord of the universe or the Mother of the universe, according to your choice. So that's another form of Shiva and Shakti, yourself and Ishvara. So what I'm saying is there's no excuse not to do these practices that will give you peace of mind back and will elevate your consciousness and open you up to being qualified to have samadhi, freedom, moksha in this very lifetime, which is the only goal for human embodiment, Sri Ramakrishna said. It's the only true goal for human embodiment. All other goals would have to come as support to that or secondary to that. So that's the whole reason people are here, whether they know it or not. It's to realize their true nature. Sometimes they call that in the Vedanta, and your Buddha nature in Buddhism and so forth. We've looked at, over the last 3 weeks, we've looked at some very powerful teachings that had to do with that. Like all the darshanas that we're being told to practice and open up to. And Upasana we looked at, remember, last week we looked at the new chart I had to compose, and that's something for you to look at, Upasana and Vipassana, how they complement each other. That was a really good part of our class. So these are listed on here. We looked at Tatastha Lakshana last week. because that has to do with false conclusions you're making about God. And God could be then also, Shakti could also be you as Atman doing your practice as a jiva. So you want to get rid of these negative impulses. I just chanted that, right? Uh, uh, that Mother Kali is the negativity destroying child of Mother Durga. So if you take her on, her main um, her main purpose for becoming uh, available to you is um, is to uh, is to destroy those impediments and obstacles in your spiritual path. That's why Durga is quite often seen with Lord Ganesha at one side of her, is that he's the one that opens the path for you if you can worship him with the proper mantras. So that's another thing we've been looking at then. These false conclusions, if you to recall your mind to them last week, I'm not going to go through them all. There are some 10 of those that we looked at. And this week we want to shift ahead for this last hour or so that we have together on this subject and look at some of the other great teachings that come along. And for that, we have to take a look at this chart, take a second look at this chart, illumination, illumination, and enlightenment. And we saw that in accord with, we've already studied it mostly, in accord with these main obstacles that can be cited. I think if you ask most people what the obstacles in their life are, they would talk about raising children. They would talk about going to school. They would talk about depression. They would talk about addiction. They would talk about all sorts of things. But when you see the five main impediments that are listed here by the seers, they're in the way of your spiritual progress. It really then makes you look back on these tataksha lakshana, these false assumptions that you've had surplanted in you again, maybe by growing up in a materialistic society, and maybe growing up with parents who weren't aware and given the dharma by a guru like you are being given. It's a great, great boon of good Mother Kali's children that she immediately makes them open to these teachings of the dharma and to jnanam, and which will increase their bhakti, their devotion, and will then set them free. It's a four yoga path, we quite often say about that. But attachment to nature without awareness of your soul is a great problem. Caught in cycles of rebirth with one's ancestors is a great problem. From Buddha on, we've been hearing about that for the last 2,500 years. Maybe it's time we did something about it, because you can have a lot of lifetimes in 2,500 years. Unresolved karmas from past lifetimes. That's an old one, an oldie but goodie, as far as how you have to see these karmas and how they formulate in your mind, and to get rid of them with these lightning bolt practices that we've already gone through on this class and in the last three classes. I want to look at a few more of them, because so I've looked at Upasana and we looked at Tadaksha Lakshana, but there's another one I want to show you next, is Mantra Chaitanya, the power of the mantra. But anyway, the fourth one here is strong desire for wealth, lands, fame, and power. And you see that in your government. Nowadays, we're noticing it a lot. See it in your military that wants to flex its muscles around the world and perpetrate violence on other races and other religions, sometimes in the name of religion. These are all, of course, not in the dharmic way. They're adharmic, to quote the seers. And ahimsa is dharmic, nonviolence, starting everything out with ahimsa and then being truthful. Those are the first two yamas of the practice of yoga. Talking about real yoga here, yoga of the mind. That's called Raja Yoga. So you'd look at that, and what did Patanjali, the father of it, say? Ahimsa and Satyam right off the bat. So those are observances that you must have, and you must have attained them. You were practicing once to get these, the standpoint of being able to observe them as true and a part of your arsenal, like these two are having an arsenal given to them by the guru. And they want to become Samara Sattva. They want to unite the forces of Shiva and Shakti within them. The fifth one up there is obsessed with animalistic existence via sensational pleasures and objects. So you can see that there's a lot of interconnection between all five of these. But the one that stands out alone is the karma that comes from all four, and possibly even the focusing in on everything that is appearing to you without knowing what's looking on. Like no one says, so they say, look at that. They don't say, I am looking at that. So basically this I gets another thing that becomes unseen and erased in the experience of entering into what nature is, how nature is dancing in front of you. You get attached to the way it makes you feel. I said last week, or was it at Satsang Saturday, that mind, that mentality, that is thought, and psychology and philosophy and spirituality is what Vedanta looks at. What it doesn't want to look at so much is physical and vital. That is physical and emotional. That, it's like, well, you should have already gotten over that a long time ago. You're not the body, we told you that, and calm your emotions and you'll be fine. Because you'll lose your peace if you don't calm your emotions. You'll become an over-emotionalized person and give way to sentimentality and sensationalism and occult powers in the name of religion and on, that even great gurus are beginning to try and voice that upon the people, so-called great gurus. So basically, you want to look at those four areas of mind and its thought, your psyche, that is the vital level, psychic prana of the thought power of your mind, which is kin to Shakti, the philosophy that the seers are giving you, and the spirituality that's going to come about by it. That's the formula that these two and other couples like them are going to want to take as their how to say, penultimate ideal. Because the ultimate ideal, I'll show you at the last part of this class, called moksha. All right, so we wanted to look at this just as long to review that, because there are a lot of practices which the Guru has given these two in order to shoot negativity destroying bits of power, Shakti power, onto these clouds in the mind to dispel them in this very lifetime. So we then go over to this from mantra Chaitanya, the dormant power in the mantra. So that's where we want to look at this very beautiful old chart put together at one point that it talks about the Bodhi mind. That's really a kind of what these two are seeking. They want not just an intelligent mind that's made knowledgeable by lower knowledge, by secular knowledge. They want a higher intelligence to dawn upon them that then, is akin to the second compound of consciousness, Vivekananda called it. It's called intelligence. The intellect itself the buddhi can become focused on these, on these problems, right? I mean, people are using their intellect to get lands and wealth, right? They're using their intellect, to enjoy things in abundance. They're using their intellect to try and take resources from nature. They have to think, how am I going to do this to get that? That's not the Bodhi mind. That's the ordinary mind. See, later on, after a process of mantra has gone through, then you get to this Bodhi mind, which is the difference between the two is that this is not aware of the Vakdevi. This mind is aware of the Vakdevi. That's as simple as I can put it. This mind took refuge in the goddess of the word, Saraswati, Kali, Lakshmi, Durga, Parvati, Tara, called by many names. And in that way, then it's become in possession of Bodhi mind. It's intelligent. And the result is all of these things you see. Going through this quickly then, the very first thing that is the ordinary mind is going to want to do is make a distinction between the subjective and the objective. In other words, if you want to put it simply, oh, there's the objects, but I'm the subject. It's almost saying there's Prakriti, but I'm Purusha, right? So if you really want to simplify it, that's separating the wheat from the chaff in its earliest stages. I said, I'm different from that. It's the first move. I withdraw myself from that because that's changing, but in here I'm is myself and it's unchanging. That's a matured version of that. But it has to be practiced for a while. And that's why these practices are given, because it's going to be destroying these things that are getting in the way of you realizing your true self and living in it. That's called abiding in the Atman in our Vedanta tradition. I am Atman, all abiding. It's a beautiful poem that's been written. 108 verses you can read. So that's put simply. So here you see it put in letters. Tattva Gyan is the knowledge of principles. They start out with what is known to everyone. Upanishads say, well, these things are known to everyone, but they're only known externally. They're not known internally. What's meant by that is that air, earth, fire, water, and ether are known externally as parts of nature. And also later on, they find out that they're mixed. There's an admixture of 5 elements in every object. But that's ordinary knowledge. That's aparavidya. The tattva gyan is set apart from that because jnanam is the word there. Now you're going to have the wisdom principles come forward. That is, what's the essence of air, earth, fire, water, and ether? What's the essence in seeing, touching, tasting, hearing, and smelling? What's the essence in mind that's going to give me intelligence, bodhi mind? And so that is the objective part of the practice. It's called stula. The sukshma part of the practice is upasana. And we went through that last week in that chart, upasana and vipassana. Really, upasana means I got to get back close to the Lord. Sort of like a man wandered away from his fire in the Arctic one night, and he lost himself in the snow. I got to get back to my fire, right? Or I'm going to die. I'm going to freeze to death, and I feel bad. So just like that, people have wandered away from the fire of their bodhi mind, their true nature, and they have to find a way back. Some of them, if get desperate, that's a good thing here. They desperately want to have union again with their true nature because it's become alien to them. It's obvious in this world how that's happened. So that's upasana. I want to draw back close to the Lord, and so I think I will worship the Lord. I will do puja to the Lord. I will sacrifice unto the Lord. I will bow down unto the Lord. Who am I quoting right now? Shri Krishna in the Gita and those different kinds of sacrifices. I will do sacrifices to my ancestors. I will do sacrifices to nature. It doesn't mean just because nature is this big problem that you can't withdraw from it and worship it. But you can't worship it while you're inside of it because it's using you and you're using it. And that's not a healthy relationship to be used or to use. You want to be detached, free, calm, transcendent, the witness of everything. That's the bodhi mind that does that. So enough said about the first section of that. That's the sukshma part of everything, is that we begin to worship inside. I just started chanting. What did I chant? Om Adihi Sa Samyoga Namitta Hetu Kala Strikala Takala Pidristaha Tam Vishvarupam is the form of the Lord. Bhavabhuta Midyam Devam Swachitastam Upasya Purvam. Upasya, right? Upasana. I must get close to the Lord. And that Lord is, according to that chanting, Upanishads, meditate upon the Lord as thy own self. And where is it? Seated in your heart. It's one of the most beautiful of the Upanishad chants. That's just checking it here in the Svetashvatara Upanishad. I thought so. So basically, it's one of the most beautiful chants there that's just straight to the point. If you run up against a person who thinks in terms of duality, they're not going to get it. You tell them, yeah, I meditate on God just like you pray to God, but I meditate on God as myself, and he's in my own heart. You see, so automatically it's qualified non-duality leading to non-duality. Back here, I'm doing duality, right? I'm having to worship the form of that Lord. What comes after the ordinary mind engages in that? They get a mantra. How does that happen? On the left-hand side, diksha, initiation. That's the objective part of the mantra. You're hearing it as a word that sounds in the ether from the lips of your illumined guru. And he transmits it to you and he says, memorize this and now repeat it many times a day. Here's a bunch of beats to help you. It's called a mala. And so you go home with this objectified side of the practice of mantra. And there, on the far right, you see there, the guru will guide you in that. The guru-shishya relationship is guidance, right? You always refer to that. Never burn bridges in our tradition. And then after that initiation has happened and you get guidance in it, then you find out that there are 3 ways, the guru tells you, in which to repeat this. Nidra bhanga, mantra and broda. As you repeat it, you come down it, and you vitalize it. So repeating it and concentrating on it is what most people do, but not very many people vitalize it. You have to take that mantra. What is vitalization of the mantra? Duh. I recited the mantra so long I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what Om meant. I didn't know what Namaha meant. I didn't know what Shivaya means. So now if I have that mantra, I have to then find out what those words mean. That Om means AUM, waking, dreaming, deep sleep, Father, Mother, Guru, in breath, held breath, out breath, and so forth and so on. It's got so many things I can know by knowing the word Om. And I have to be careful it doesn't take me away from finding out what Shiva is, because there's so much to Om. But you find out what it is, that's vitalizing the mantra, and so few people do it. I've been on hand with people who are spiritual guides and their students. Did you know what the guru means? No, I don't. I don't know what any word means in Sanskrit. I just say it like a parrot. Well, that's why both Vedavyas, father of Vedanta, and Patanjali, father of yoga, said there are people who recite the mantra who never reach the goal. There are 3 kinds of people who practice who never reach the goal. One of those is those who recite the mantra like a parrot without knowing the meaning. So this is where mantra practice has a middle part to it. It's a very important teaching there. You repeat it and you concentrate. I'll get to the concentration part in a minute. I've got a whole chart on increased concentration I want to do. Then after that happens, then you find out you can utter the mantra in 3 ways. Silently, which is called superior. You can mutter it, which is next, and then you can say it out loud. If you're if your plane all of a sudden loses altitude and you think you're going to crash, you better start doing it out loud. So out loud is for those times when you really need to have it there as an audible thing. So that's pretty much called vachika japa. And then upamsu is muttered and manasa is silent. So you can see those 3 ways. And if this whole teaching right now is here, right? It's about the power in the mantra. That's Divine Mother Shakti. That's her. That's the Vakdevi. She's in the mantra. And you can even sing that. We have before. Ram Prasad sings it very nicely. Mono boli bhajakali icha hoy to jayachari Gurudata Mahamantra Divaneshi Japa Kori Mono Boli Bhajakali. Means, oh playful mind, meditate on the mystery of Kali using any method of worship you please. That's Upasana, right? It's going to bring you close. Or simply breathe day and night her holy name as the living seed of transforming power planted by the Guru in your heart. And then that's what I sang basically, but the song goes on with 3 verses saying, consider when you lay down that your sleep is a devoted offering to her. So every time you go to sleep at night, It's sort of like, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. It's sort of the Christian version of it. But in our version, it's like you give everything to the mother of the word, to every action that you did, to every thought you had in that day. You offer that all back to her. And you go to sleep that way. And you're doing the mantra as you fall asleep. Then maybe the mantra even visits your dreams. Maybe it dissolves you into deep sleep, brings you back, and you wake up again with the mantra on your mind and on your lips. So you did, how many times did you do the mantra? And how many ways did you do the mantra that when you fell asleep? 3. It's right there. First, you did it, muttered it. You said it aloud when you fell asleep, before you fell asleep. Then you muttered it in your dreams. Then you did it silently in deep sleep. So all of this is a conscious repetition of that mantra that you're supposed to do all the time. This is mantra chaitanya as a great lightning bolt that destroys these attachments to things that are unreal, changing, unfulfilling, and pain-bearing, according to the seers. So all of this connects us, what I'm saying. What happens then is bodhi manaha. It's a beautiful word. The mind, manaha, gets intelligence awakened in it. It's like having a fire start in a cold place, as we were just saying. Where did that come from? It was always within me because I meditated on the Lord as my own self seated in my heart, right? That's the fire of intelligence that starts to burn. And it starts consuming all the icebergs and ice cubes and icicles in your mind that are causing you suffering, doubt, fear, and ignorance of your true nature. It starts to burn away all the vestiges of samskaras and karma that's in the mind. It warms up the mind. And that's bodhi manaha. You can see that the Vakdevi is given it. And it turns people into, oh, how about a few rishis? It's a great seers who wrote the Upanishads. How about the saints of every tradition who worship God with great devotion? How about the Mahatmas? Viveka Vijnanavato Mahatmano, I've been chanting lately and memorizing about these great souls, the Mahatmas who come, who get illumined out of this powerful mother mantra that they're given. There's the Paramahamsas, don't forget them. The Siddhas, those who are perfected, the sages, and the yogis. These are just 7 or 8 of these great beings, names that we can give to these beings who have left the world behind and realized Brahman. And now for them, the world has become Brahman. It can't do that until this happens. You can say it all you want, the world is Brahman, but it doesn't make sense to you when suffering comes, errors happen, mistakes are made, not only in your individual mind, but in the collective mind all around you. Then you're going to have to say that, that this world does not look like Brahman to me right now. So how did they do it? They awakened the intelligence of their mind. That's bodhi mind. And these beings all have 2 things in common. They had an ideal, antaryami, and they had an atman. That is, they have an atman, and guess what? So do you. And if you realized, I'm sorry, if you received the mantra from a guru of a lineage, like ours stretches back to Swami Vivekananda and Brahmananda and Holy Mother and Sri Ramakrishna, and all the way back to Rama and Krishna, then if you receive that mantra, then you have means to realize your Atma now. And that's been the great gift that's been given to you. Holy Mother even said that, she gave initiation to probably thousands of people there in India when she was living. But she said, after all of it all, she said they don't use it very much. And they maybe use it for a few days and come back to me and complain that it's not working, as if 2 days of saying the mantra is going to get rid of all this. What's the matter with that thinking process, you see? They're going to have to do it for a while. She says, go ahead and do it for months, then come back to me and complain if it doesn't work. She wants you to awaken your own intelligence, right? Because up here, it's just a practice so far. It's not, you're not even vitalizing it with studying what the words mean. So how can you expect that the mantra is going to work if you don't do that? So this is why we're saying here, pointing out that this is called Atman, or divine self. It's awareness of absolute reality. Because why? Because meditate upon the Lord as thine own self seated in your heart. That's why. It's not leaving anything to chance. You're not worshiping something in the sky. You're not afraid of something in the ground underneath you. It's not that kind of process. It's awareness of your own divine reality inside of yourself, which has always been there, always will be there, will never not be there. It's all pervasive Brahman in everything. But you can, what is the second line? It appears to you as the universe, right? It appears to you as the universe. So all of this is Shakti, Brahman Shakti, appearing to you as things. It's actually her. It's the Vakdevi and everything. Now wake up and smell the Kali. Sorry, I had to say that again. But wake up and worship her inside of the self. And then that's as much as I want to say right now. There's a natural japa that goes on with your in-breath, held breath, and out-breath called ajapa. It's a spontaneous flow of the divine name. That's where if you got into dream and deep sleep and you took the mantra with you and it became a part of your fabric of your thinking, your bodha manaha, then you would have this natural flow of the mantra going on all the time. So the great souls attest to that. The mantra just kept flowing in my mind even when I didn't necessarily want to do it. I didn't feel like I had to practice this anymore. It just became a divine flow. I thought of anything out there and the mantra came up. So if fear comes to you and all of a sudden you find yourself saying Om Ramakrishna, then you know that it's a part of your being. If doubt occurs to you and all of a sudden you say Om Shisharda, then you know that that mantra has become a part of your being. You automatically revert to that, which is the opposite of your fear and your doubt, which is self-assurance and realization. So Sri Ramakrishna says, and we'll end this chart there, mantra is that the contemplation of which yields special knowledge of the universe, revealing it to be non-distinct from Brahman. In other words, the universe is full of Brahman. Mantra Vishvavijnanam Samsara Bandhanat is the Sanskrit for that. So that's how mantra will show you, if you practice it and repeat it, it will show you that the universe is not different from Brahman, right? But before you realize that, you were seeing everything but Brahman in the universe. How can Brahman be pain? How can Brahman be suffering? How can Brahman even be happiness? Those things pass. Brahman is non-changing. It doesn't pass. It's always present. So whatever practice nets you that realization of the unchanging, then you know that you're on the right track to moksha, mukti, kaivalya, sankalpa. That is basically freedom from samsara and sankalpa, mental projections and suffering. A quick look at one of the great practices that we looked at Upasana, we looked at Tataksha Lakshama, we looked at Mantra Chaitanya. If we wanted to take all these up, we'd have another 3 or 4 classes coming after the seminar. We'll think about it. But now let's go to the art of it all, because that was something I've been wanting to, I think I flashed it last week, but I wanted to get to this gauge for concentration. Yamas, niyamas are the first 2 limbs of yoga. What's the third? Asana. Fourth is achar, drawing the mind back from its objects. And the 5th is concentration, dharana. So if you can see that if Father of Yoga put it 5th, he put it beyond number 4, right? So beyond number 4, if you didn't get beyond number 4, you couldn't have concentration. So what kept you from having concentration? Your inability to withdraw the mind, the ordinary mind, until it was bodhamanaha, your inability to withdraw that from the world, from objects, from feelings, from pleasures, from pain, because those things are causing you these critters these five become engorged. They become furthered and expanded in the mind of the ordinary person. So they come back and they're reborn with these very same things again. These two are tired of that. And there are divine couples out there that say, no more of this suffering for me. It's like Lord Buddha saying, no more birth in the womb of matter for me. Uh, only, only emanation from my divine mother. That's Ramprasad saying that. No more birth in the womb of matter for me. Only emanation from my divine mother. That's the Bodhimanaha emanation. That's the intellect at its highest reckoning. The second compound of consciousness. That's what's shining in you. Fire of intelligence, it's called. So this gauge, I've set it up in several ways. I've entitled the chart Manana Shakti because that was down here, and one of those powers, and Nitya Pralaya, which is up here too, right here. Conscious dissolution of daily occurrences in deep sleep. Sorry, we're going back and forth so much you can hardly see it, but I'm just showing you that we're fleshing out this circle and some of the lightning bolt methods that are there. So one of those is this one that we're calling Nitya Pralaya. You want to dissolve everything that arises in your mind at the end of the day. And doesn't matter if it's good or bad, both have to go. But the bad definitely has to go. So those bubbles that rise up from the mind, that you keep thinking about at the end of your day, somebody scolded you, someone insulted you, something didn't go right your way, the world isn't the way you want it, so forth and so on. You're thinking about that at night. It's causing this kind of bubbles rising in the consciousness of your mind. And you go to sleep with that. That's the worst thing. So you go to sleep with that, and then they get deeper into your consciousness, into your dreams, to put it simply. And then in deep sleep, you don't see the solution for those. Actually fattening up everything, all the seeds that are there. Instead of diminishing them, it's fattening them up. So you want to make sure that before you fall into dreaming and deep sleep, and in order so you should get to Turiya, the highest level of consciousness, another one of those samadhi words, that you want to make sure and dissolve those so you don't take them into sleep. So call it positive mind all the time if you want. Our founder, Lex Sixon, peace and bliss be upon him, was always in a positive mind frame when I saw him. And every time I was with him, it was amazing that he could always be that way. So a little bit about Manana Shakti, the power of Divine Mother, and Nitya Pralaya, this ability to use her power for your own to dissolve negativities. Next week's seminar, right? How does Mother Kali dissolve the negativities in our mind if we let her in? If she knocked on your door one night, you'd probably shut the door on her. Yeah, if she appeared to you in her usual form. If Lakshmi knocked on the door, come on in. People let her in, but not Kali. She's there to do something to you and for you. That's getting rid of all the things that are keeping you from having your own full experience of life in spiritual life, eternal life. So open up the doors for her, and we'll do that. So you can see here, and I'll leave the chance for the end. So there's a gauge here from 0 to 100, as it were. You can't really see the words there on the chart, but it says the first is a child's awareness. That's 0 to 10, as it were. And then the restless teen. And then the desirous youth. Then the alert young student or adult. And then the advanced meditator. That's a five-fold graph of consciousness measured by people's growing up, basically. It's the easiest way in which we can take up this subject right now. Because we know in that process of growing up in those 5 stages, people can reach a mature adult and not be so mature. They can still throw tantrums. They can still be violent. They can still do stupid things. And they can have negative thoughts. And so that concentration has been used in the wrong way. So we're having this this gauge given to us that first, at the first look at it, is just basically saying a lifetime, how we can develop concentration over a lifetime so that we can become an advanced meditator. What is an advanced meditator? We looked at that last weekend and also at the satsang God blogs. Basically, remember the God blog where Holy Mother said, don't just seek God, see God. Remember that one? Don't just seek God, see God. And then after that was a quote from Swami Brahmananda telling how Swami Vivekananda was always in meditation. He said whether he sat, stood, slept, awoke, ate, uh, uh, whether he came or whether he went, he was always in meditation. That was a beautiful thing about his brother monks realizing that state in him early on, that he was always in consciousness of Brahman. And that's why Sri Ramakrishna had that kind of faraway look in his eyes, and he wasn't always, didn't comb his hair, you know. Months passed and I haven't even combed my hair, the poet Tu Fu says. And just became this God-realized person that was only uh, interested in God and not in the conventions of the world. So that's where I want to lead that graph to. I mean, we can go through these phases. Hopefully, a mature adult means that we're one of these two. You see, we're either Shiva or Shakti. And we've matured ourselves to such a place that we have been able to get a mantra from a teacher, practice it, and awaken our intelligence. Therefore, increase our devotion. Jnanam and bhakti are not separate from one another. They work together, as do the other two yogas, action and inaction, or meditation. So in that, a beautiful way that everyone can understand how to increase their consciousness over a lifetime. Everyone's encouraging you to do that. Everyone who has your highest good in mind from when you're just a little boy or a little girl is, is actually encouraging you to awaken your intelligence. How? By being able to sit down and concentrate. That happened to me by playing the cello. My father gave me this strange instrument when I was 11. I just sat in the corner collecting dust for a year or two. Finally, I got a teacher, and then I learned to play it. And the thing I hated about it was so hard. Then 2 or 3 years later, I'm practicing 6 hours a day, and nobody can get me away from the thing. So, the thing that you hate the most first, becomes that thing that you love the most if you have concentration, dharana. Everything becomes blissful if you have concentration. The most mediocre work becomes better if you have concentration. So that's the fifth limb of yoga. I'm sorry, sixth limb of yoga. And then after that comes meditation, right? And then after that will come samadhi, seventh and eighth. We left out pranayama, I think. Yeah, that's how you're thinking that. When we went through the eight limbs of yoga, we didn't quite finish it before. That's why I stumbled on this and called it the fifth limb. But actually, earlier on, we should have said yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, control of the breath and vital force, then pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. Good. Yeah, we've made a correction. Now, this next level of graph up here starts out with sporadic attention. This is going more towards the ability. This gauge was given more on the stage of life, how people naturally learn to concentrate or they don't. Or they can learn to concentrate on menial things or moderately, but some of them can actually increase their attention so much that they can develop samadhana. You know what that is? Sama, Dhamma, Upariti, Titiksha, Samadhana, and Shraddha, right? That's the six jewels of Vedanta. So they can develop a kind of concentration that when they sit, it's God and me only. Maybe after that, it's only God, because me goes away. But they sit and they can immediately shut out all the things of the senses, what they hear, what they see, what they taste, what they smell. The senses are under their control, and they're sitting in deep meditation, just like hopefully we'll be doing here in about a half hour on Kali Puja. So we wanted to strive for that. Otherwise, back at the beginning of this practice of concentration, if you want to call that, people's attention is anything but focused, is sporadic. That's what the father of yoga calls kshipta and vikshipta, right? The scattered mind, then a mind that starts to gather but can't keep it gathered and goes away again. Vivekananda tried to put those five teachings of Patanjali into his four ways of describing it. It's like there's scattered mind, then there's gathering mind, then there's gathered mind, then there's focused mind. So he was quoting from the father of yoga who lived a couple thousand years earlier when he wanted to talk about the different states of people's mind. So that's kind of what we're going on here, focusing in on concentration. Sporadic attention goes to surface awareness. You probably have met people who just pretty much hang out in surface awareness. Like people are saying, oh, I went to see my family last week and they went to a certain town and they were all gathering at dinner time and they were just talking on the surface of everything. So it's little zeros coming out of their mouths and nothing deep was happening. So I kind of got bored with it because I like the Vedanta and I like depths. I like to be out of my depths. So I left. I excused myself. So that's that surface attention, worldliness that people are into. Poor things, without knowing that they have this great fire of intelligence in them, that if they awakened, they'd be having deep concourse, not only with God, but with the people around them. You know what I'm saying, right? These two are having wonderful darshan with God and with themselves if they're a consecrated couple that's practicing Samara Sattva. Surface awareness will then give way to basic concentration. And I would say that I would probably call that going to work. People learn to concentrate like I learned to concentrate by playing the cello and working through the problems of it. By going to work and doing things that focuses their mind. Some days they're not so good at it. Their mind returns to scattered. They can't gather it. They're in a tamasic mood or excited mood, rajas. But basically, sometimes they're very focused and their work is like, when you're focused, work is quite satisfying. You're doing karma yoga for people. And that's a good satisfying thing that you feeling you have. Helps fulfill you. But beyond basic concentration and a steady concentration, and that's what the seers and the gurus are trying to get people to have, is that if you can just focus not just on God, but on every little thing all the time without losing your concentration. It's like becoming aware of your breath all of the time and breathing fully. Like, you might become back at basic breath control, basic concentration. You might be breathing sometimes and then you're slumping, just to catch yourself and, oh, I forgot to breathe. And you feel better right away, you see. So basically, just like being aware of your breath, being aware of your mind's ability to stay concentrated all the way into dreaming and deep sleep, because a man has come to me from a land that never sleeps, and all my dreams have now become radiant meditations. One of the ecstatic poets of India sings, now, no matter where I go or what I do, it's all Brahman. I've been told that. I'm on my way to realizing that. And here's how I practice it, by constant attention, concentration. So my basic concentration begins to uh, have less influence on me. And I graduate to a state called steady concentration. I call that sthiti samadhi. And it's always been my favorite samadhi, sthiti samadhi. Basically, I'm always steady no matter what I do. And I don't go into high flights of bliss or deep experience of non-duality. I wish. So when it comes, you want to have this evenness that sets you up for these beautiful moments of love, loving union with Shiva and Shakti, or these profound moments of deep oneness without fear and without doubt. Those are open to you to have. And it has nothing to do with death or dying or nothing to do with ordinary life. You've raised the bar completely. And that's what this deep focus is about that comes to view. That's the next level of the graph. It's a two-form graph with a little bit of a sidebar here that we'll get to in a minute. So from deep focus then becomes total immersion. That's samadhi or satori or nirvikalpa or asampragyata. Uh, there are different words for it in the different traditions of the world even. So that's this gauge as it shows itself up on the level of your mind's attainment. This gauge was your life and how anyone can learn how to concentrate by the end of their life and even become meditators. We see some people are coming forward now out of the Western society and fabric and saying, I've been meditating for 30 or 40 years now. So that's a good thing. Hopefully, it has been meditate helped by your knowledge of what meditation is and what the mantra means and what your study of the scriptures and all that. Then it's a fuller kind of meditation that will give rise to total immersion. Like the hailstone finally fell in the ocean. Patanjali himself says, and we can take one quote here, when concentration gets centered at the crown of the head, the yogi sees the spiritual light and has darshan with the illumined souls abiding there. Then, by the flow of spontaneous knowledge, everything becomes known. Just reading about how Vivekananda talked about that. Uh, and with our chant, Paras Trikala Dakala Pidristaha, we said this morning, how all three phases of time, he became the seer of them. That's like what this is saying here. Everything becomes known in all three phases of time. And they become known how? As the Brahman with attributes, we were saying yesterday, as Sakala Brahman, or the lower Brahman, the Atman. But the higher Atman is something still to be known, and that has to be known and can only be known with the pure mind, cannot be known with the ordinary mind. So when you hear that teaching the scriptures, you cannot know Brahman with the mind. You must make sure and qualify that. The seers say you can know Brahman with the pure mind, but not with the impure mind or the ordinary mind. Make sure that you take a wiser course in that way. Let's take the sidebar as we move towards our consummation of this four-class series. Starting at the bottom, this is just by words, pretty much describing what these two modes are lines of methods, levels, you might call them, are trying to tell us. First, you awaken dull, hazy awareness from the sleep of ages. Remember when you're a teenager, it's a really hot morning, and you just lay in bed, and finally your parents come in and say, get up, you lazy thing. Basically. So that kind of describes that funk, that you had when you were young. You couldn't quite open your eyes. You didn't want to get out of bed. And finally, you galvanized yourself. You got up, had some food, went out, breathed, got yourself going in the day. Oh, when you say sleep of ages, you want to take that and magnify it many hundreds of years, over many lifetimes. And so people have been sleeping just like that in ignorance for long, long periods of time, for many lifetimes. And they're not awakened even in this lifetime. You meet so many like that. This is alien to them. It's a foreign language. It's speaking Greek, but actually we're speaking Sanskrit, and that's better. So we want to hear these words. That's the point of this. The Vak Devi is the power in the word. The song I just sang is that all sounds you hear are her natural mantras, repeating spontaneously as the whole world worships her. Goddess Kali constitutes the letters of every alphabet, and each letter secretly bears the flower of her name. Dato Shunya Karnapute Shabe Mater Mantrobate is the Bengali. So basically, this is how this describes it. In every word, every letter, actually, he's saying, bears the flower, the blissful flower of Mother Saraswati's name, Mother Kali's name in his case. So that's how words can be imploded inside of the mind. Just like atoms were exploded out here by scientific devices, the real power is in the word atom or matra, like A is an atom, it's an atomic atom, and you want to implode it by thinking about it. And it'll release great power for the union of Shiva and Shakti and the ultimate good of moksha, liberation, for all living beings. So I don't know how quickly I got from sleep of ages to that, but that is what's coming as we look at this. The next level is extracting the mind from worldliness and conventions. Keep thinking of these as you grew up, because it bears connection. You also went through that part of teenager life when you had to go and do things that you didn't want to do with your family, with your parents, and with society, and with your relatives, and with society, and things that you weren't interested in. You were forced to do these things until finally you realize that this is not satisfying me. It's worldly, and it's conventional. It's not taking me anywhere. I'm missing any kind of satisfaction in it. I'm missing any kind of basic happiness in it that isn't attended also by suffering. I'm missing my peace of mind because it's always making me restless. And I'm missing, most of all, bliss, which has no opposite. And I should always be positively in those qualities. Those are the qualities I want to have and hold, you see. So the only solution to that the person finds is to unlock the mind's inherent intelligence. We're coming at that for a second or third time now, as we're looking at all these things from left, right, upside, downside, in towards this solution. Awakening the mind's inherent intelligence. It doesn't say your intelligence was not there and you had to find it somewhere, like in schools or books. In books and temples, vain thy search. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags you on. Right? So cease lament, let go thy hold, say Om Tat Sat Om. That's what Swamiji is saying here, that inherent intelligence is always in you and in everyone, as the all-pervasive Atman in everyone and everything. And some are awakening to it, quite a few are not. The next level is then maturing and merging individual ego into the cosmic mind. So there is a mind greater than yours. Once you've found the intelligence in your own mind, when manas and buddhi get together and ahamkara, ego, starts to take a back seat, you have a vision of the great mind. And that's where the five elements came from. That's where the five senses are connected to. That's where the prana leads to. That's where the shakti is coming from. It's that great mind. Manas, that is the Mahat Manas, the great mind, Lord Brahma's mind. You could even call it Om, the word. And so that's a huge step inward towards that. And that's where, by then, your faith and your devotion have increased. So they're giving you access to that. Your guru's behind you supporting. Remember, we said that already. Your true guru, which we'll look at in a second, is behind you, supporting that. And now you have these experiences that are coming to you from the mind that's awakening to its own inherent intelligence. Put those two together, that is the testament of the seers and the scriptures, with your own direct spiritual experience, and you've got the winning combination you've always wanted. And you can go to the goal. Nothing will keep you from the goal in this lifetime. The sooner the better. You can enjoy that eternal happiness. You can have that peace that passes all understanding. And you can experience that bliss called Ananda, which people are naming themselves after by the thousands. Then that apply the Shakti force for dissolving all forms and concepts. But probably to think that these two, I've always thought, wow, there's a great mind out there. I remember we were talking about that even in high school, especially when we want to impress our friends. Oh, there's a great mind somewhere that's bigger than ours. Oh, really? Do you know anything about it? Well, no, but I'll talk to you later about it. So just a mention of it in high school and college, people in America were talking about it. And that was a sign that there is this great beyond within us, not outside of us, that everyone is so spending so much money, time, and energy just to shoot themselves up into vacuous space, but the inner space, that is not the Bhutakasha, not but the Pranakasha leading to the Chit Akasha, the highest space, which is within you, right? Meditate upon the Lord as thine own self, seated where? In that heart space within you. So they've found out now that all of this has led them, or all of this has led them, all of this has led them, and all of this is leading them to the realization of Shakti and everything. Not Brahman yet, but Shakti, the dynamic power. The great intellects get all infused with that. It's just that if there's no gratitude or devotion for her, they'll become conventional and worldly. But if there's devotion and gratitude to that dynamic Shakti as it appears in you, you become, well, shall we go back and talk about them? A rishi, a saint, a mahatma, a paramahamsa, a seer, a siddha. That's where you're headed for now, this inner status of high awareness where you can claim the prize of your own Atman and enjoy the qualities there. And also have darshan with the Divine Mother of the universe. Sarva darshan, right? So we go back and look at it. Sarva darshan. I have that communion with the Divine Mother of the universe herself. At that point, it's almost like they say, game over. It says that Maya is already beginning to crumble and turn into Leela, divine support for you. Ignorance, bondage, and fear are beginning to lose their hold over you. And Shakti power is in charge now. The difference between ordinary mind then, as we said earlier, and pure mind is that presence of realization of Divine Mother. We had a God blog last week where Tatapari, the great teacher, Advaita teacher, Sri Ramakrishna, learned about Shakti and all of a sudden had this amazing realization of Shakti, which he hadn't had for all his many decades of life, even when he found the Advaita, the non-duality. But he found the Divine Mother in a vision, thanks to Sri Ramakrishna. So that's how important and how fulfilling this Divine Mother power is, this Shakti force. What does it do? It fuses intelligence, wisdom, and consciousness together. The intelligence, higher intelligence, sees the Jnanam inside. It looks at a deeper level than just science, mathematics, social studies, history, astronomy. Those are all aparavidya. It looked and found the paravidya now, the supreme knowledge. And when it saw that, it saw consciousness behind it. There was a great light in it all. And that light began to shine in things. That light in the spiritual teachers called ojas at first. Later on, it's called tejas. So that ojas is gathering up power that realizes the Shakti. And then it turns into tejas, the ability to transmit that power to others and awaken them so that they can pass it on to other people. It can be said in many ways, like by 4 Mahavakyas, but it really ends up there. Full realization that only Brahman is real. They quite often put that in the forms of Brahman is real, the world is not. But that's only until you've realized Brahman is real. If you haven't realized Brahman is real and haven't fully had that deepest of all insights, if you want to call it that, then the world's still clinging to you in some ways. And the great seers have talked about that last stage of lifting off, last stage the rocket ship lets go of before it can cruise into the deepest outer space. So that's this juncture and its consummation in the fullest realization that only Brahman is real. This is all about increased consciousness via concentration then. This is called the beginning of samyama in yoga, where you can actually you've controlled the mind, senses, prana, and thoughts. Now you can concentrate. Then you get meditation and samadhi, right? So if you put dharana, dhyan, and samadhi together, it's called samyama. Now the yogi can accomplish anything. The yogini can do anything in the realm of awakened intelligence and have the greatest effect for the good of all living beings. Patanjali puts that within that blissful space of focused thought occurs the single-minded state of meditation. When all places and objects become empty or equal, the only deep meditation and only deep meditation on the essence occurs, radiating forth meaning. Then the mind gets absorbed in samadhi. These final three limbs, integrated together as one, are known as samyama. By gaining victory over that, living intelligence appears within the adept yogi and yogini. So this is the consummation of that intelligence that was once just inherent in you. Then you found out about it, you activated it with things like the mantra, and it awakened, it began burning, and it helps you to burn away all obstacles. Then when the obstacles were gone, you saw all the divine qualities called dharma mega. After the divine qualities were possessed and you knew that they were a part of you, then you saw Brahman. You saw I and my father are one. You saw that. You perceived that as the truth of all. It's always been the truth, but now you proved it to yourself. If you want to put all of this into just 4 steps, there's the final graph. Mastery of Dharma, ready access to Atmagyan, that's wisdom of yourself, unbroken communion with that Atman, and full focus on the non-dual Brahman. And that's how concentration becomes its most mature form in just 4 stages. But the first of those stages, mastery of the Dharma, is what we're doing right now. And we're having all these teachings given to us from the ancient rishis of the Upanishads in India, the Sarva Dharma, the Atma Gyan, or the Vijnana, it's called the highest wisdom. We're hearing this, and then it's having this effect through the words. And all that time, what's happening? She herself is teaching us. She herself is teaching us through these words, as the power in the words, and as the power that um, that transmits the words from a source to the waiting ears of those who are interested in freedom, moksha. The last quote down here is actually, just as the intellectual world turns alluring and intriguing when mental concentration is mastered, similarly, the realm of the spirit or conscious awareness expands blissfully when the ability to focus directly upon divine reality is attained. So it's like my teacher saying, you must go beyond the intellectual frame of reference. He would talk to the Westerners in his congregation. You must go beyond the intellectual frame of reference, because he taught us for years. He realized one of our big impasses that these people that were coming to hear his talks were not getting beyond was the ego and the intellect connection together in the mind. Part of the antakarna, the inner organ, and it was clinging to the intellectual level. The people in his congregation were not clinging to the body anymore. They weren't clinging to the breath. They were clinging to the intellectual frame of reference, and that was keeping them from having realization. So this is, I've actually made 10 charts on that called Teachings of My Guru that we've used at retreat before. Getting beyond that intellectual frame of reference is important. Now, how much time do we have left?
Just
About
12 minutes.
Have some minutes left. So a good way to consummate a 4-class study on something so important as Samara Sattva and everything that's been contained in it is to take a quick trip through everything that we've talked about, and all the methods incorporated that were given by a great sage seer called Lord Vashishta, who taught the teenage Ram, we know, when he was just a young avatar, before he was known as an avatar. And so in the mumuksha prakarana of the scripture called Yoga Vishishta, some of you have read that, and SRV here has put out a translation of that. We have this outlined by Vishishta, the supreme pathway to the eternal moksha. And this will, we've got about 10 minutes. We'll go through it like a whirlwind. But you'll see how it's so applicable to the goal that these Shiva and Shakti are trying to realize in their spiritual practice. It's just a step-by-step practice of how to do it. And some of these are also some impediments. You can see them, traces of them are in the impediments. Like the first one, study the Atmagyan Shastras. They lead to liberation. Vashishta is telling his charge. You see the image below. He's telling these young men, study the Atmagyan scriptures, my dears, and leave the ordinary Shastras to others. Because ordinary Shastras lead to bondage. Bondage to what? Heaven. Remember my teacher saying, I do not care for postmortem emancipation, nor do I care for heaven. Also, I don't fear hell. I want to go beyond all of that, and I will do so. I'll be free right now because the scriptures of my tradition tell me that I am free. The Atman is always free, and I am that. So that's the conclusion I've made. So therefore, a seeker might say, a sincere seeker, you can see it put there, is going to make a distinction between Atmagyan scriptures or revealed scriptures and the ordinary Shastras. You probably don't have to think far to think of what an ordinary Shastra sounds like. You might have heard some of them in your life, talking about everything but your relationship with God and how important that is. And also talking about a lot of mediocre, mundane things that are of the earth, not of the realm of the spirit. So we want to go to the Atmagyan Shastras because they speak specifically about the union of the apparently individualized self called the jiva with the supreme self, the Brahman or Parbrahma. The next level of that is the difference between pure desires and impure desires. I'll back up for a second because there's a quote by Lord Vashishta under each one of these levels. He says, the greater is the science of divine within, divine wisdom, while the lesser intuits only terrestrial knowledge. That puts it nicely. It treats only terrestrial knowledge, but the Atmagyan scriptures are the science of divine wisdom, this Atmagyan. So then going on to pure desires, it says they lead to the Brahman state, but impure desires generate pain. And that pain becomes a samskara in the mind that causes these kinds of associations, pain and fear and doubt with my ancestors, with matter, with money, with lands, with wealth, with karma that comes from them. All of this affects my psychic picture, the way I perceive things or the way I don't perceive Brahman. And so that way, that pain-bearing obstacles have to be transcended. The next is very important. You arrive at the Purusharthas, the four fruits of life. Start with dharmic life, then right livelihood, then legitimate desires, and that will lead you to moksha. That's one of the most ancient and long-standing mother teachings, divine mother teachings. It's the four fruits of life. That's right out of the Shakta tradition. Dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. If you've ever heard about it, make sure when you hear about it that they start with dharma, because if they start with artha, then they're going to be talking about you're going to have joy of life, but that's joy. That joy turns into sorrow because that's not eternal life you're talking about. It's dharma first. It gets rid of all your attachment to wealth and all of these things, artha and kama, desires. Pure desires and impure desires then went before that, right? you realize that I can get pure desires if I follow the dharma. So make sure that you take that in the right order. And my teacher was always very keen on that right order. And it says here, through right endeavor in this life of the world, all ends of human endeavors can be attained. And above again, free the mind from subjection to the impure vasanas and make it associate with the pure vasanas. Vasana samskara. I heard that a lot from my teacher. That is, samskaras in the mind are created by vasanas, desires. And so you give up those, or you replace them with pure desires, and those samskaras will then become more pure, and they won't be so impeding all the time. So that is how you get through this process of moving towards, along the supreme path to moksha we're talking about. Next comes the difference between the Jnana Guru and the Ajnana Guru. I just mentioned it in those who are teaching about you enjoying the world rather than renouncing it. So the Jnana Guru is called Guru Viveka. The Ajnana Guru is called Guru Aviveka. Make sure you know the difference. There are 4 characteristics of the true teacher, right? And we've studied them quite a bit. And Shankara gives it to us in the Vivekachudamani. So the West should have heard that and read the Vivekachudamani before these pseudo-gurus came along and started pulling the wool over their eyes and just embroiling them more in these part samskaras. And so Vashishta is making sure he tells these 2 young souls that he's teaching here in this image about that. And he says, after discriminating between a guru of Jnana and one of Ajnana, find asylum in the Supreme One. So always go to those holy company, those divine beings who satsanga is called, will teach you that there's a liberation to attain beyond nature. And you should isolate yourself from nature and from desires for it so that you can make yourself a candidate for and qualified for attaining moksha or mukti. That's the difference between the teachings of Jnana Guru and Ajnana Guru. Then the 4 qualifications come along. We also know about these sadhana chatushtaya, right? This whole chart is just something you can look back and just dive into. Just use your mind to look at all of these great teachings. It's just like a list of teachings we've had for 13 years in SRV, put in some sort of order with the proof that it got taught by one of the oldest sages we know, oldest seers we know, Vashishta himself, to the Avatar Ram back in the earliest of yugas. So it's just really a Vijnana fest, if you want. It's a mart of wisdom. Well, we know, and I've already mentioned some of these today, earlier, that the 4 qualifications are viveka, vairagya, satsampati, and mumukshutvam. So basically, in between, you have these 4 fruits of samadhamma, uparitiksha, samadhana, and shraddha. So if you put them all in a line like that, you see that their 4 qualifications are discrimination between the real and the unreal, detachment from the unreal once you found out that the world is unreal, and then all of these are just the 6 jewels, and they end up in the desire for, in faith and the desire for freedom. Take a look at samadhana there, because basically that's that concentration that's unbroken, that these aspirants who are sincere want to get that. I want to be able to meditate on Brahman for an hour without any deviations, without any distractions, without any break in my concentration, like a flow of oil from one beaker to another without a break. Taila Darajan meditation. I want to be able to do that with the Lord. I'm going to practice it for 5 minutes. Then I'll practice it for 15. And then I'll hold it for a half hour. Pretty soon I'll be going to a 2-week-long retreat, seeing if I can hold it that long, and so forth and so on. And also I'll help with the mantra, right? Mantra Chaitanya. That will help me stay focused when my mind won't obey me, as it were. Because of why? Because of these past samskaras. That leads to Brahmapadesha, initiation into the path of Brahman. Now, this is an ideal way it goes about in the old age. It just doesn't happen in this age. Pretty soon, they'll fast forward to things, say, quick, take the mantra before you get swept up in Maya again. But, we haven't done any of this yet, most people in the West. So they have to backtrack. Backtracking is one of those things we saw happening with people when they couldn't make swift progress in either mantra or meditation because they hadn't had these previous qualifications given to them and practiced them, that become achara, qualified. Now we have to fill in a few blanks along the way in the West, you might say. But in the old days, they wouldn't give you Brahmapadesha, the feet of Brahman, the 4 feet of Brahman. They wouldn't give you that teaching until this had been understood. You weren't subject to taking false gurus. You weren't taking a mantra and giving it up later. You know the difference between right desire and wrong desire. I mean, all these things had to be there in you before they'd entrust you with initiation. He says here, until my mind is illumined, until thy mind is illumined, walk the path of initiation shown by the realized souls. And prior to that, we have ordained that all souls should be initiated after attaining the 4 qualifications. That's straight talk from Lord Vashishta to great aspirants, hidden adepts like Sri Ramchandra when he was a teenager, for instance. From Guru Padesha, then, where to go from that? It's called the 3 great sources: Guru Anushasana, Vidyashastra, and Aparoksha Anubhuti. Get that transmission from a wise guru. Get the knowledge of the scriptures from him or her, and then get direct spiritual experience. Those are the 3 great sources, basically. You want to find that wise guru and make sure that that's not aviveka guru they're looking at. There's some good signs about that, how the nature of their teaching and their purity and so forth. And then ask for the wisdom. What do you know? What scriptures have you studied? And how can you transmit that to me? And then you start to get your direct spiritual experience from that in due time. He says, assimilate within yourself the profound knowledge derived from the 3 great sources. These are all quotes taken out of Yoga Vishishta. I recommend the scripture highly. It's ancient. It's quite different than many others. It's got a kind of even esoteric following, even in the United States and the West, because it's so an unusual scripture that people find different enough from the traditional scriptures that it calls to them. After that, they have what's called Atmatripti, the 3 requisites or prerequisites for Atmagyan. The first is destroy all illusory thoughts. The second is gain quiescence of mind. And then Brahmakara Vritti, merge into Brahman. Practice merging into Brahman. I'm now a salt doll. There's the ocean. What's my first idea? Not to run away from it, because that's my true nature there. I'm not afraid of salt or water. So I will go merge in it, you see. But prior to that, you need to have this quiescence of mind that would have rid you of the fear of the ocean or of salt and say, I am that. That's what you get from destroying all illusory thoughts, like these beings are doing with these lightning bolts and these main samskara skandhas there. And finally, he says, well, about that, he says, by these 3 great prerequisites, may you attain to the Atmic state, free of all stains and pains. And then the retain the four sentinels after that. That is basically you get peace, the ability of self-inquiry, contentedness, and holy company. Shanti, Atma Vichara, Santosha, and Sadhu Satsanga. Those is called the four great sentinels. So they will be on guard with you all your spiritual life to keep you steady on the path. Is those who have embraced and implemented these four means gain freedom from samsara. So a quick trip through the eternal path to moksha. Moksha is that superlative word that has to do with eternal liberation. The Divine Mother very much involved in that process for each individual child that she has taken refuge in her. Patanjali says that too at the end of the scriptures. So for this ending of the 4-class series, I was going to sing you a verse instead of just chant a sloka that I usually do. I'll sing you a verse out of the Hastamulaka Stotram. Yada surya ekep aneka chalasu stirasvapyanadyan vibhasya swarupaha chalasu prabhinaha svideseka evam sanicha palabdis swarupahamatma Gana chana dristir, gana chana markam, yata nishprabham manyate chati mudaha, tata bhavad bhatiyo muda drishtahe, sanicha palabdis swarupahamatmam. Samateshu vashtush vanusutam ekam samastani vashtuni anaspri shanti vivadvat sada shudamachat svarupam sanicha palabdas swarupahamatmam Sanicha palabdis swarupahamatmam. One transcendent sun becomes many, reflecting in the ripples of a lake. One indivisible being appears multiple, animating many bodies. But relativity ever fails to divide it. Ignorance only momentarily obscures it. It is undeniably whole, which is the pervasive condition in all. There is only this one, existing in all beings, and all beings existing in it. It filters down and touches all hearts and minds, yet nothing can touch it. It is like the sky, pure and serene, subtle and impossible to taint. That one am I am that one. There can be none other. Shanti. Om.